Welcome back once again. It is time for the golden age of DC Comics, 365 days, where I take this beloved hardcover coffee table book given to me about 2 decades ago by one of my best friends. This has been surfing my coffee table ever since, providing me with a constant source of comic book shop style conversations, the kind I wish to recreate right here, right now with you. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm using this 365 days book for its intended purpose. I'm opening up to today's date. It is October the 30th. We're going to look at some comic book art of an antediluvian age. We're going to read the blurb, and then we're going to talk about comic books, and we're going to talk about comic books every day for the rest of the year. The golden age of DC Comics runs between 1938 with Action Comics #1, the first appearance of Superman, to 1955. The Silver Age begins in 1956 and runs until 1970. The Bronze Age between 1970 and 1985, and the Copper Age begins in 1985. I get these standards and definitions from the glossary of the latest Overstreet comic book price guide. Get your own. It's a really good resource, and for any comic book fan. And while I'm shoving some books under your nose, allow me to introduce you. If you're a noob to a veteran and you don't have these books in your collection, stop, drop, and giggle. You're being given an opportunity to pick up on 2 of the most interesting inside sources of appreciating what we love. Art and storytelling. This is Understanding Comics, The Invisible Art by Scott McCloud. This is a crash course in art history, sequential art, storytelling, modes. And this is How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way by Stan Lee and John Buscema. This shows about form, function, perspective. It's an insider's look at these comic books, looking outwards. Because honestly, a lot of the times we are picking up these magazines, and we are literally the outsider looking in. And these afford us the insider's look outward. Perspective, literal perspective, And that goes a long way with enjoying what we're talking about. A celebration of comic books and of superhero comic books and of these monthly publications, their accumulations of magazines and of stories. And thank you so much for tuning in. You are the most important part of this show, this conversation we are having. Keep those comments coming and continue this conversation. Now let's get to it. Let's open this book up to today's date. I really and sincerely hope that you are clobbering your problems and not being clobbered by them. Over and out. Thank you so much. All right, it's October the 30th. Story by Ed Herron. No art credit. This is from Adventure Comics 174. This is March of 1952. And there we have a bunch of we've come to define what a gangster looks like. Stereotypically or archetypically. We can look at a panel and we can see how a certain character is dressed. By now, we've been doing this all year long. We should be picking up on these things by now, shouldn't we? Well, behold, it's the Green Arrow. 1001 ways to defeat the Green Arrow. And behold, look at those guys. They all got the fedora hat and the smart-looking suit, and one's carrying a smoking Tommy gun, and they're mocking our hero. And one's laughing, ha ha. And there's Speedy, his kid sidekick, saying, "Golly, GA, do you suppose they really know that many ways to beat us?" That's Roy Harper. Yes, and Oliver Queen. Let's get to it and read this blurb. A recurring plot in the DC narrative Arsenal. Arsenal? I wonder if that's a pun, because eventually Speedy drops his kid sidekick name and adopts the name Arsenal as his adult superhero persona. He keeps the iconic colors and the bow and arrow. But a recurring plot in the DC narrative's arsenal involved a criminal mastermind with a foolproof scheme for defeating the hero. Sometimes the Fiend was a dedicated fanatic, But as often as not, he was a swindler intent on selling his phony scheme to other felons. In this story, the author of a book called 1001 Ways to Defeat Green Arrow offers it for sale to his crooked clientele. Bald and bespectacled, a typical egghead of the period, the wicked writer named Withers may be sincere or not, but he'll certainly be no match for the eraser arrow or whatever other weapon the Emerald Archer employs. Oh, the alliteration. I wonder which one of the three writers nails the alliteration, and that seems to be a recurring thing in the blurbs. Occasionally, you get some wicked words of witticisms, sharing that initial letter to join them. It's very Stan Lee would do that too a lot, and this Marvel Comics just had these great narrative boxes, and that's Green Arrow, and Green Arrow was very integral in the definition between the Silver Age and the Bronze Age. About 1969, Oliver Queen, our millionaire playboy here with all these resources to enable his crime fighting gig, loses his fortune, becomes politically radicalized with very progressive and liberal ideas. And it was about the time, the spirit of the age as well. And so Green Arrow became from a millionaire playboy to defender of the weak, and it was so he played opposite a lot of the times to his best friend Hal Jordan, who was a conservative Air Force pilot, and also with Carter Hall, the intergalactic policeman from Vannegar, who was a pretty brash, conservative voice in the Justice League of America as well. And but they always had this balance of both sides working together. So about 1969, 1970, this intersection of real life ideas started happening in comic books. You had you also had that famous Speedy, my ward is a junkie, and the famous drug awareness of it. There was the famous crucifix, this chosen one, Messiah idea, and these are just the Neil Adams and the O'Neill famously in 1969, 1970, 1971 redefined Green Arrow for this new age. And it was the Vietnam War was going on, the civil rights were going on, second wave feminism reached its peak, and there was so much activism in real life. And we usually talk about activism being the antithesis of escapism. Well, because back then, it wasn't the norm. It wasn't being, it wasn't everywhere. No, it was very few and far between. It was special. These activist notes were downright special. And there's this famous panel where there's this an old African-American elderly man speaking to Green Lantern, saying that you do well for the green man and the blue man and the orange man, but what about the brown men? And then Hal Jordan has what we today call a paradigm shift. He never thought of that before. And so he has no problems teaming up with his very liberal best friend, Oliver Queen, and they go on a road trip. They go in and they have a pickup truck, and they have this, journey across America. And that earlier, right around this time too, in 1969, had this very interesting movie called Easy Rider. It was written and directed by Dennis Hopper, and it starred Dennis Hopper and Peter Fonda as two friends, two urban people, two progressive, forward-thinking young Americans in the 1960s. And they went on a road trip on their motorcycles through the Deep South. And it was a very cautionary tale about the clashes of cultures and the clashes of America. And it's even poignant even today. And so I see that in that Green Arrow, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, of the end of the Silver Age, the beginning of the Bronze Age, owes a lot to Easy Rider because of the whole theme of hard traveling heroes. And also, Green Arrow has had a lot of live screen time. I was a huge fan of Smallville. Smallville was a Superboy story, and in season 6 of 11, Clark Kent is given his new best friend and someone that has a mission in superheroing, and it was Oliver Queen. And so we had Justin Hartley playing Oliver Queen, and in this soap opera. It was a Superboy primetime soap opera. It went on for 10 seasons. So Justin Hartley was a regular. He was one of the mains on this show for season 6, 7, 8, 9, for 5 seasons. And just it was a really awesome way to see Green Arrow on screen. After that, about a year or two later, we got what we could call now the Arrowverse. We got Stephen Amell, and he plays Green Arrow, and what begat this huge franchise of DC shows. It started with Arrow, and then came the Flash, and then came the Heroes of Tomorrow. Then there was a Constantine show with Matt Ryan that was a spinoff. And it's this, and then there was Supergirl. Then there was Batwoman. That there is so many. They call it the Arrowverse. It has its own continuity, and it plays by its own rules. It had its own crisis. I kind of tuned out for that. I did though. I pretty much peaked at Flash season 4. That was my show. I liked the Flash. It had enough Arrow in it. Arrow was a different tone of a show. Both very soapy, but I kind of like the lightness of the Flash. This is Grant Gustin's The Flash. And but they had something called Crisis on Earth X, and it was a crossover show with all the shows, and each show had its own episode, and it was really fun, and it reminded me of the comic books that we would have, that I had back in the day, that you would have a crossover between all of these different, you have to get Superman for number like 487, and then you would have to get Wonder Woman, this, and you would read them, and that would be the sequence that you read them in as well. Being a comic book fan is pretty fun, and it's been fun talking about comic books, and we've been talking about comic books today, and we're going to talk about comic books every day for the rest of the year. So tune in tomorrow, 3 p.m. U.S. Eastern, and we'll find out who we're talking about when we turn the page tomorrow. Please like and subscribe. I would love to earn your subscription. We make regular content here. We make daily content here. We got something that's gonna probably uplift your spirits and make you want to say, yes, we are nerds. We are geeks. Huzzah! Yeah, that's my intention. Yes, come aboard. There's plenty of room for everyone. Leave comments, like and subscribe. Turn on those notifications. Ring that bell. Yes, indeed. Thank you so very much. God bless. Namaste. Good luck. And we will see you again tomorrow in these funny pages. Thank you so very much. Bye-bye.